bother connecting. Should go live now any minute.
Yeah.
There we are. Yes, good evening and welcome once again. We're just waiting for the whole thing to click in. And welcome once again. It's Monday night, it's 8 o'clock, and it's time for the ref's opinion. And this is where we discuss all things refereeing, yellow cards, red cards, given, some not given, and all other aspects of refereeing. Delighted to be joined once again by former Premier League, former FIFA referee, former head of the PGMOL, and the man responsible for introducing goal line technology, Keith Hackett, all the way from Sheffield in the UK. Good evening, Keith.
Good evening. Good evening.
Just to let you guys know, there is a few storms around, so reception sometimes cuts in and out, so I hope you'll forgive us for that and hang on in there. Now, if you'd like to make comments on the show, you're more than welcome to do so. If you'd like to ask a question, you're also more than welcome to do so, and we will do our very best to answer your questions. Keith, a couple of things. I just wanted to talk about a young man who's broken onto the scene. He did an FA Cup match, and then he did the City Wolves game. Farah Halam, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correct, and he did quite well, and I admired him for sticking to his decision, even though he went to VAR and VAR advised him on whatever, and he said, no, I'm sticking to my original decision, which he did, and I admire him for that, because referees, as you know, tend to use VAR as a crutch to help them make a decision. But this referee, tall young man, looking very fit and professional, he decided to stick with his own decision. But I did watch him in the championship game against Stoke versus Southampton, where there was an appeal for a penalty, which was a penalty in my opinion, but he turned it down. He didn't give it. Not only did he not give it, he also cautioned the player who was fouled he cautioned him for diving. I don't know if you saw that match, Keith, or not.
I did. Like you, I felt it was a penalty kick. I think that if you're going to caution anybody for simulation, which effectively is saying you're a cheat to the player who's gone down, I think you've got to be absolutely spot on. I've seen this before. They come on with a great deal of fanfare and glory, and then suddenly drop the levels of concentration, or begin to think, oh, this is only a championship game. I've done a Premier League game. That's not how refereeing works. That's not how football works. I'd often referee an international game or a Premier League game, and then the following day referee in the local parks. And often players would say to me, a couple of pub teams, come on, Keith, it's not the FA Cup final. But it was the FA Cup final, because your reputation is built over a long period of time as a referee, and it's lost in a snapshot. So I hope that this referee has received some operational advice. Referees do make errors, and this is one. It's how you deal with it, and that is one, to examine the decision, and then if you feel that you're wrong, say so to yourself, and move on, and learn from that example. Sometimes you fire from the hip. You just want that. That just like a very good midfield player, you develop time. And refereeing and good referees, I've run the line to the likes of Jack Taylor, World Cup referee, and others, and they just have a lot of time, and that's thinking time, and they come to the right call. I think this was a bit quick.
I would hope that sort of attitude, mentality, call it what you like, would not creep into his head. I've refereed a Premier League match. I've done an FA Cup match with top team. Well, Macclesfield were one of the teams, but it was a Premier League team that he had in opposition, and that he wouldn't have that attitude that, as you rightly say, does get to some referees. I'm up there now, championship game. Oh, that's the, I, like you, have refereed Premier League matches and then done Sunday morning game, between not necessarily pub teams, but way, 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 way down at that level. And you've got to maintain standards at all times because, like anything, you're only as good as your last game.
Yeah.
And if you drop your standards and get too big-headed, and I'm absolutely not saying that he is or he did get a big head because he's got a Premier League game, because as well as I do, Keith, but that hammer can fall on you and it can drop you right down the list. And it's it's easy to drop down, but it's much, much harder to try and climb back up again.
Yeah. I mean, referees are always battling, and the battle is concentration against complacency. And I think that, that old trick that I've mentioned in the past of one particular referee, we call him the 75-minute referee. He had a rubber band. The sports psychologist recommended that. And when it got to around about 73-4, his assistants would say, snap that rubber band. And it was just a redress of concentration. And I think, this whole aspect of refereeing is so important that, first of all, we get into the habit that we're actually refereeing 2 games, not one 90 minutes, but 2 45-minute halves. We must understand that when there's substitutions, the game can change. We know at half time, if the team is 1 or 2-0 down, they're going to get a right rollicking from the manager, and they come out as though they've eaten like 3 pounds of raw meat and want to take it out of their opposition. All these things are, if you like, that library that you build up of experience that you and I spend a great deal of time wanting to pass on to younger referees. It's not just about refereeing, is it? It's about managing a team, managing their expectations to some degree, managing your own. But I always encourage young referees to have a diary. And I say, right, okay, just do a précis of the game. What was the weather like? What did you eat before the game? How did the first half, second half go? I don't want a story. I just want some highlights.
The reception will kick in and out. We just lost Keith. We lost you there for a moment, Keith, but good to have you back again.
So I'm basically saying that have a diary, put some short recordings of your performance, highlight 2 of your strengths. Say, don't be arrogant, but say my fitness felt really good today. Or I dealt with this situation really well, and explain it. And then go to the hard bit and say, this is an area that I need to improve my game. I wasn't as mobile as I should be, or I didn't deal with this particular incident. So I think there are aspects of refereeing that always need that interrogation of performance.
Don Harris is just as a regular contributor to the show. He says, and I was going to mention it anyway, but thanks, Don. I'll get my goggles on. He says, evening, gents. Recently, rugby officials took a strong line and gave a 3-match suspension to one of Ireland's key players. I think it was 6 matches, actually, Don, for backchat in a provincial Leinster versus Connacht match. Is it time for football to start taking a firmer line for the same back chatting? Oh my goodness, Don, if only, wouldn't it be super? Don't know if you're aware of that, Keith. Irish player called Bundy Aki, who plays for Connacht and is a regular in the Irish team, and he's now going to miss 3. I think maybe this way you're getting a little bit mixed up, Don. He's going to miss 3 of the Ireland 6 Nation matches starting next Thursday because he was back chatting the referee. The referee reported it. The IRFU stepped in and said, this is not on, it doesn't happen, and we're going to stamp it out now before others also started. And he got a 6-match ban, which includes a couple of Connacht games and 3 of the Ireland 6 Nation matches. Wouldn't it be super? Thanks for that, Don. Wouldn't it be super if we had that in football?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that rugby has a history of is respect towards the referee.
Yeah,
But for a long time, at that level, it was an amateur game.
yeah,
And I have seen when it became professional, I've seen a change in attitude towards referees. I admire rugby union referees. I think there's some wonderful communication, excellent decision making. Yes, it's a different game, but I often play that clip of Nigel Owens confronting a player who confronts him with just a comment, and
he was
and
very
his,
witty, wasn't he, Nigel? Owen?
yeah,
Yes,
and
very.
his response was, "I'm the referee. I make the decisions," and a wonderful communicator. I learned quite a bit. I'd like to have seen him earlier in my career, because afterwards, when I watched, I particularly started watching rugby union because of the communication kits that I brought in, and we they were there with rugby union already, and they made a big impact. But I listened into a referee and I thought, wow, wonderful, and I got the strap line, where I would probably say to a referee, the next time you do that, you're in the book. Here was a referee faced with a similar situation, and it was, I want an improvement in your behavior. And that was his strap line. And I've gone, I'm going to use that. It's less threatening. I'm not shutting off my options. And, when we go to the review of an incident, I think it's just marvelous how they do it. And I'd love to get VAR to do similar. On the question that is raised, some years ago, we adopted what was then a system in rugby where you had a descent, you advanced the ball 10 yards.
Yeah.
And we did that as an experiment, and it was really, really positive. It really had an impact because it was a team punishment, not just the player. And you got the players saying to their colleagues, shut up.
Yeah.
And then FIFA liked the idea and said, right, we're going to adopt it, but you can only advance the ball if you caution the player. Defeated the object. The objective was to keep the cards in the pocket and do it. What is probably not seen is that when there is 3 or more players surrounding the referee, that is put on report by the referee to the football authorities. And you will see throughout the season a number of occasions when clubs are fined for failing to control their players because they break that level of criteria. I would like it to be more public when they actually say, in this game, in this incident, we, the lawmakers, have banned these players for 1 or 2 games, and make it more public, but they don't.
No. Did FIFA withdraw that just on that issue of the 10 yards? Did they withdraw it or make it more difficult as they usually do? Because it's a great idea. They used to advance the ball 10 yards as they do in rugby. And I'm trying to think, I hope I'm not wrong, but with Irish football, the Gaelic football, they play the ball to hand, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We're talking about any back chat now from players. They're going to advance the ball 50 yards.
Wow.
Which will put it within scoring distance.
Yeah, and good on them.
That type of punishment, Keith, rather than, as you rightly say, rather than dishing out a yellow card, to do some other kind of punishment that certainly the offended team would have a good advantage to get the ball into the penalty area. Even by 10 yards, it's not so bad. But this thing of it's still happening, by the way. It's still happening. The players are still crowding around the referee, even though they're not supposed to. And I wonder, are the referees, are are the referees actually reporting the incident?
Well,
That more than three players. I don't know how it could be missed on TV anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I don't know the answer. What I do know is this, that football already has an answer. And that is the sin bin. At grassroots level, if a player shows dissent towards the referee will caution that player, yellow card, and then he goes off the field of play for 10 minutes. And it has
so
impact.
He gets off the field for 10 minutes
and a yellow card.
Oh, I thought it was just off the field and no yellow card.
Well, I think in certain leagues they operate with a yellow card. I'll check that for next week anyway. But the reality is that does work when the referee uses it at grassroots level. It impacts on the team and it improves the on-field behaviour almost immediately. So my view is, I think that, you know, let's experiment, say in the Championship next year, get approval from the IFAB to say, right, we'd like to run the experiment of a sin bin and 10-minute ban, and it'll shut the players up if the referee applies the law. But again, there are games where I've seen.
Let me play devil's advocate.
Pardon? Yeah.
Let me play devil's advocate here, Keith. Why do we have to wait for it to be tried here and then there and then there, and 5 years later, then maybe it's going to be brought in? The issue now with the goalkeeper holding the ball 8 seconds, they are complying with that. There is no problem with that.
Yeah.
They're doing it. So, you only need to start doing it and it will be done. And the players will soon get used to it. But they're not accepting those kind of law changes or amendments because they're not being implemented and they're getting away with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just
think... Am I too hardball about that?
No, I think that there are aspects of the game where it tarnishes the image of the game, and dissent is one. Grappling in the penalty area that we talk about almost on a weekly basis, another. Yeah, for sure.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Quite a what's the word? Stormy end to the end of the Chelsea West Ham game. Right at the end. And actually the player, in my opinion, who started it all was Cucurella, because he alleged or tried to give the impression that he had been fouled. He went down and then he grabbed the ball. And you always know a player who knows that they're not entitled to a free kick, because if they don't get the free kick, well, then make sure the other team doesn't get the ball. And they always grab the ball. Now, that should have been a handball against Cucurella and a free kick. But then a melee broke out. And honestly, I personally, if I had been refereeing that match, I would have had 2 red cards for that melee and 3 yellow cards. The guy who was eventually sent off, can't remember his name, but I know he was number 25, grabbed the Chelsea player around the throat, red card, assault. And the second one, there's another West Ham player actually slapped another player in the face.
Yes, he did.
As the thing was settling down. So I would have given 2 red cards for that. I'm sure you saw the game. And the melee went on for quite a while. And I know we're told, don't get involved, don't get into the middle of things because you might get a stray punch. Stand back and take notes. But I really thought, I think he sent off the one player, but he had to check it. And how he didn't see it, I don't know. He'll probably say there were players in his way. And am I being critical of Anthony Taylor? Probably yes. For a man of his experience, that he handled it, in my opinion, not the way he should have.
I think my observation is that in my era, we would pile in as the referee and physically try to separate the players. And of course, I had the mass confrontation at Old Trafford where it was a 21-man brawl and no one got sent off. So people will always say, Keith, why didn't you send people off? The reason being, I got 55,000 in the stadium, and if I'd have sent every player off that offended, the game would have been abandoned, and that would have given great difficulty for the police and security in exhausting nigh on 60,000 spectators onto the streets of Manchester if I abandoned the game. So there are elements, but in this situation, okay, we now say to referees stand off, and we say to two assistants come in and observe. It was right in the corner. It was the end of the match. So there was already an assistant there, and Anthony Taylor stood well off. What I would have liked to have seen is a heavy whistle. I would have really liked Anthony to, the whistle in a game of football tends to stop things, and therefore he ought to have blown the whistle pretty hard. I can understand why he needed to go to VAR on that red card, because the player, I think, may well have, the offender may well have had his whole body facing the crowd.
I think we've lost Keith. Again, I did mention about the reception not being very, very good, the storms around, and such a pity where we're just having a great conversation about that. In the meantime, I could just read you out a couple of more comments from Gav Mungy, who says that I take a zero tolerance to backchat and abuse while reffing. Yellow cards and red cards, if needs, as Keith is suggesting, sin bin in grassroots in the UK is brilliant. I would love to see this brought in over here. Keith is back with us now.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry, Keith. Lost you there for a second. Sorry, carry on there.
As I was trying to say was that I think in terms of that red card that he did issue and needed VAR, I think that he was interrogating the old thing. And I think he was perhaps asking the VAR or suggesting to the VAR, are there any reds? Because that player who was sent off had his hands round the throat of his opponent, but he was facing the stand. And it may well be that particular player was covering what he was trying to do, and Taylor hadn't got the ideal view. I would have hoped that the assistant might have seen it and come in. Ultimately, that red card was the right one. What I didn't see was that he actually cautioned two players. So out of it, he got one red, two yellows. I think Cucurella should have received a yellow. And then there was a player who slapped an opponent in the face. Now, that wasn't number a friendly 15. Slap.
Number 15,
Yeah, and I think he was, that ought to have been brought out in VAR. They're in communication. So I think he can say, look, come and take a look at this one. But I think they just thought it's the end of the game, let's go off. It was a very untidy finish. Now, for a mass confrontation, the Premier League or the PGMOL or not the PGMOL, the FA, they could fine these two clubs up to £250,000 each. I hope.
Oh, wow.
Well, there was one in midweek where the clubs have been fined 120,000.
Oh.
So I think with these, this is not the first time at the end of the game we've had mass confrontations. And so somebody has got to dig their heels in at the FA. And I think this one tarnished the image of the game. The FA can say, well, we've got our number one referee on the case. He didn't control it. It was difficult to control. Therefore, we're gonna fine the clubs. So I think it requires a big fine here for both teams.
Here's another one from I did read out Gav Mungy's one. David Baker. Good evening, Dave. I know you, my friend. Ben Hammer came into the QPR side for a game a few weeks ago, held the ball for 10 seconds, corner given. No one had given him or told him the new rule. Not sure what that means, David. Are you familiar with that, Keith?
No, I think that next year there is a plan. It's not introduced yet as a law that the 8-second rule, if you like, law, will be introduced at throw-ins and corner kicks. So the game, so at this moment in time, it's in discussion. It's not.
That's what David's talking about, I think. Yeah,
it's not been determined yet.
David, just come back to me on that if that's what you mean on that one there. And then Gav Mungy has come back here. He said another issue I have in these mini shiny guards, shin guards, he means. There's going to be a serious injury before IFAB decide to bring in a rule of the size of the shin pads.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that he saw the clip that I saw. When a player made a challenge, this postage stamp, it was hardly 2x1 inches. I mean, it might have been 2x2, but it was no bigger than the size of a very large elastoplastic plaster that you put on.
Or a Band-Aid, as Americans call it.
Yeah, it popped out and he put it back in. And I've gone, that is absolutely zero protection against the player. I mean, I just, now whether there's legal connotations and that IFAB were fearful that they might be sued because, they determine the size of the shin pad. I suspect this is the business element, the players that advise IFAB to say, just allow the players to select their own shin guard.
Yeah.
It's an abject
that's the one, the same video that you saw. That's the one he saw as well. He's just confirmed it there. Yeah.
Absolute nonsense. I mean, I just smiled. I mean, the days that I spent on refereeing football matches and saying to the player, will you pull your stockings up over the pad? And, we had a period where we actually checked that players were wearing shin guards before the game.
Right.
And we, because of health issues, they wanted the sock over the shin guard, the risk of hepatitis and other things with blood injuries at that particular time was at the forefront. But hey, crazy.
I suppose the main guy responsible, and I put it responsible inverted commas, for this low socks down is actually Jack Grealish. Because initially they used to say the shin guard must be covered. And so they were pulling the socks up, pushing the shin guard right down to the top of the foot, and then putting the socks over it, which meant that the socks weren't even halfway up the leg. And I thought initially when FIFA wanted to tidy up the game, telling players to have their shirts inside their shorts and have their socks pulled up.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how they let things slip.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's interesting is if, you and I watch a lot of games and so do our listeners, the number of times now that players stay down genuinely hurt. I know we have elements and it's around the contact with the shins, either not necessarily the boot, but just leg on leg. And they're sort of writhing in agony because they have received a certain amount of pain. Just get shin guards back to where they used to be.
You know what, Keith? They'll wait until the horse is bolted and then they'll close the gate. Some top player's going to get his leg broken and then there'll be a big hullabaloo about it and then they'll clamp down on it. If only they could be a little bit more forward thinking and say, guys, this is something that's waiting to happen and we should do something about it now. Once again, Keith, thank you very much. We've run out of time. Thanks to Gav, to Don and to David for sending in their comments. And for all of you out there, please keep sending your messages in, and I will get around to answering them. Until next Monday, 8 o'clock, same time, same place, 8 o'clock next Monday, on the Ref's Opinion, and from Keith and I, good night and God bless. Thank you.
Good night. Good night.